My name is Elena Brooks, and the morning after the most beautiful day of my life, I watched my mother's face turn pale as she stared at her phone, reading the words that would haunt her forever. Have you ever been invisible to the people who were supposed to love you most? Let me back up. I grew up in Connecticut, in one of those families that looked perfect from the outside. My father, Richard Brooks, was a respected cardiac surgeon. My mother, Victoria, sat on every charity board that mattered. My older brother, Marcus, was the golden child, Harvard Law, engaged to a senator's daughter, destined for greatness according to everyone who mattered. And then there was me, the accident, the afterthought, the daughter who existed in the margins of family photographs. I learned early that love in my family was conditional. It was earned through achievements that reflected well on the Brooks name. Marcus got attention for his debate trophies. I got a distracted nod when I graduated summa cum laude from Columbia. He got a Mercedes for passing the bar. I got a card with a check for my PhD acceptance, signed by my mother, not even written personally. But I stopped needing their validation somewhere along the way. I found my own path. I became a pediatric oncologist, working at St. Mary's Children's Hospital in Boston. I met children who fought battles that would break most adults, and I learned what real strength looked like. I learned what real love looked like, too. The parents who slept in hospital chairs, who sold everything to pay for treatments, who never gave up even when hope seemed lost. And I met Daniel. Daniel Chen was a photojournalist who came to the hospital to do a story on childhood cancer. He had this way of seeing people, really seeing them, not their resumes or their family names or their potential usefulness, just them. He saw me, the real me, the one who cried in supply closets after losing patients, the one who made terrible jokes to make scared kids laugh, the one who existed beyond the shadow of the Brooks family legacy. We fell in love the way real people do, messy and gradual and completely certain. He proposed on a Tuesday night in my apartment, with takeout containers still on the coffee table, and me wearing scrubs with cartoon dinosaurs on them. No grand gesture, just him, looking at me like I was enough exactly as I was. "Marry me," he said. "Not because you're a doctor or because of your family. Marry me because when I imagine my future, you're in every single moment of it." I said yes before he even finished talking. We planned a small wedding, intimate, meaningful, just 75 people who actually knew us and loved us. Daniel's family was immigrating from Taiwan, his parents, his grandmother, his two sisters. My guest list was shorter, my parents, Marcus and his fiancée, Stephanie, a few cousins I actually liked, close friends from medical school, colleagues who'd become family. I called my mother 3 months before the wedding. "October 15th, I told her. "It's a Saturday. The venue is beautiful. This restored barn in the Berkshires. Nothing fancy, just intimate and real. I'm sending the invitation this week." There was a pause. "October 15th? Elena, that's Marcus's engagement party weekend. We've had it planned for 6 months." My stomach dropped. "What?" "The Vanderbilt estate. 300 guests. You knew about this." "I didn't. No one told me." "Well, obviously, Marcus's event takes priority. It's his engagement to Stephanie Hartley. Do you understand the connections this represents? The governor will be there. This is important for his political future." "And my wedding isn't important?" "Don't be dramatic. You're already living with this man. Marcus's engagement party is a once-in-a-lifetime networking opportunity." "Mom, my wedding is once-in-a-lifetime period." "Elena, be reasonable. Have your wedding another weekend. Marcus can't reschedule. Everything's already arranged." The thing about being the invisible child is that you reach a point where you stop being surprised by the neglect. But it still hurts. Every single time. "I'm not rescheduling my wedding," I said quietly. "We have 75 confirmed guests. Daniel's family is flying from another country. The date is set. Then you'll have to understand that we won't be able to attend. Neither will Marcus and Stephanie. Family comes first, Elena, and right now Marcus needs our support." "I am family." You're being selfish. This is typical of you. Always making everything about yourself instead of thinking about what's best for the family name." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Daniel found me sitting on the kitchen floor staring at nothing. "They're not coming," I said. "My parents, my brother, they have Marcus's engagement party the same weekend, and apparently that's more important than my wedding." He sat down beside me and pulled me close. "Then we'll have a wedding filled with people who actually care about us, and it'll be perfect." I wanted to believe him, but there was this small, wounded part of me that still hoped they'd change their minds, that they'd realize I mattered too. They didn't. The invitation sat unopened on my mother's desk for 2 weeks before she texted a brief decline. "Unable to attend. Prior commitment. Congratulations." 23 words to dismiss the most important day of my daughter's life. Marcus didn't even respond personally. Stephanie sent a gift, a crystal bowl from their registry with a note that said, "Best wishes," like I was a distant colleague, not his sister. I cried for 3 days. Then I stopped crying and started planning the most meaningful wedding I could imagine. The weeks before the wedding were strange. Colleagues asked if I was excited. Friends asked about family drama in that careful way people do when they sense something's wrong. I deflected. I smiled. I focused on the joy of marrying Daniel instead of the absence of people who should have been there. 2 days before the wedding, Daniel's grandmother arrived. Mei Chen was 84 years old, barely 5 feet tall, and had more presence than anyone I'd ever met. She took my hands in hers the first time we met. "You are loved," she said in careful English. "You are chosen. This is what matters." That night, she asked about my family. I told her the truth, all of it, the neglect, the favoritism, the wedding they wouldn't attend. She listened without judgment, just nodding slowly. "In my village in Taiwan," she said, "we have saying, blood makes you related, loyalty makes you family. Your parents forget this. But you remember. This is why you will be happy, and they will have regrets." I didn't understand what she meant then. October 15th dawned clear and perfect. The Berkshires were burning with fall colors, reds and golds and oranges that looked painted. Our venue was this restored 19th century barn with string lights and wildflowers and windows that framed the mountains. I got ready with my best friend Sarah, who'd flown in from Seattle. She did my makeup. Daniel's sisters helped with my dress. Simple ivory lace, nothing like the elaborate gown my mother would have chosen. I looked in the mirror and saw myself. Not the daughter the Brooks family wanted. Just Elena, and I looked happy. The ceremony was at 4 in the afternoon. Daniel cried when he saw me. His vows were about choosing me every day, about building a life based on what we believed in, not what looked impressive to others. Mine were about finding home in a person instead of a place. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," the 75 people who actually loved us stood and cheered. The reception was everything a celebration should be. Daniel's father gave a toast in Mandarin that made everyone cry, even though most of us didn't understand the words. We understood the emotion. My med school roommate told embarrassing stories. We danced badly. We ate comfort food instead of rubber chicken. At one point, I looked around at the mismatched collection of people who'd come to celebrate us, and I realized something. This was better. This was real. These were the people who would show up for us in hospital waiting rooms and during crises and on random Tuesday nights, not because of our last names or our connections, but because they loved us. Around 11, as the party was winding down, Daniel's mother pulled me aside. Her English was limited, but her meaning was clear. "Your family, they miss something beautiful today. Someday they know. Someday they understand what they lost." I hugged her and pretended I wasn't crying again. We left around midnight. Our wedding night was at a small inn nearby. We were exhausted and happy and married. Daniel fell asleep with his head on my shoulder, and I lay there thinking about how absence can hurt even in moments of joy. My phone was off. I wanted this night to be just ours. The next morning, I woke to 73 missed calls. My heart stopped. That many calls meant emergency. Someone had died. Something terrible had happened. I called Sarah first, my hands shaking. She answered immediately. Elena, thank God, have you seen the news? What news? What happened? Your wedding, it's everywhere. CNN, MSNBC, The Times. Elena, you're a headline. I pulled up my news app with Daniel looking over my shoulder, confused. The first headline I saw: Hospital's orphan wedding goes viral. Bride abandoned by family gets surprise of a lifetime. Below, it was a photo. Daniel and me laughing during our first dance. But behind us, visible through the barn's windows, was something I hadn't noticed during the reception. Lights, dozens of them. In the field behind the venue, someone had arranged luminarias, small paper lanterns glowing in the darkness. They formed words large enough to read from the road. Elena plus Daniel. And below that, loved by 75. I didn't understand. We hadn't arranged that. I kept reading. The article explained everything. One of Daniel's photojournalist colleagues had attended the wedding. Moved by our story and appalled that my family had chosen a networking event over their daughter's wedding, he'd written a piece. But not just any piece. He'd done something that went viral in ways neither of us could have predicted. He'd interviewed our wedding guests, not about the ceremony, but about who we were as people. Dr. Sarah Martinez talked about the time I'd worked 72 hours straight to save a patient, then cried in her car afterward because I still felt like I'd failed the family. James Kowalski, a night janitor at the hospital, talked about how I was the only doctor who knew his name and asked about his grandson's Little League games. A mother whose daughter I'd treated described how I'd slept in their hospital room the night before the girl died, just so she wouldn't be alone. Daniel's colleagues shared stories about his work documenting humanitarian crises, the way he used his platform to spotlight forgotten communities, the gentle way he photographed children who'd lived through horrors. But the piece wasn't sentimental. It was a brutal, factual comparison. While we celebrated our marriage surrounded by people whose lives we'd touched, my family attended an engagement party at the Vanderbilt estate. The journalist had even gotten photos. My mother in Chanel, my father in a tuxedo, Marcus and Stephanie posing for society pages. The headline asked a simple question. What says more about a person's character? The family they're born into, or the family they choose? The article included the fact that my parents were prominent Connecticut socialites, that Marcus was a rising political star, and that none of them had attended my wedding. It didn't need to editorialize. The facts spoke for themselves. By morning, it had been shared 500,000 times. But that wasn't the most viral part. The luminarias, those paper lanterns spelling out our names, weren't arranged by any wedding vendor. They were arranged by our patients. Not my patients specifically. Children from St. Mary's who I'd treated. Children who were in remission or recovering. Children who remembered the doctor who'd sat with them through scary nights. Their parents had organized it secretly. 75 lanterns for 75 wedding guests. A quiet statement that we were loved by people who mattered. Someone had taken aerial drone footage of it. That photo was everywhere. This glowing message of love in a dark field, visible from the road, impossible to miss. And then the internet did what the internet does. People found my parents' social media, my mother's Instagram, carefully curated photos of charity events and family portraits that rarely included me. Marcus's LinkedIn, highlighting his engagement to the Honorable Stephanie Hartley, with no mention of his sister's wedding the same weekend. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Comments poured in. Imagine choosing a networking event over your daughter's wedding. This is what's wrong with high society. Status over substance. Those poor parents must feel like idiots now. Journalists started calling my parents' house. Their friends started asking questions. The charity boards my mother sat on started getting emails questioning her character. Marcus's political mentors started gently suggesting that maybe abandoning his sister for an engagement party wasn't great optics for someone with political ambitions. By noon, we'd received interview requests from Good Morning America, The Today Show, CNN, NPR. The hospital was getting calls. Daniel's agency was fielding media inquiries. I sat on the in-bed, still in my pajamas, watching my wedding become a cultural referendum on family, loyalty, and what actually matters. Daniel was reading comments on his laptop. Listen to this one. I hope her parents see this and realize they missed something irreplaceable for something meaningless. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I'd been ignoring them all morning, but something made me answer this one. Elena. It was my mother's voice, tight, controlled, barely concealing panic. We need to talk. Do we? This media situation is out of control. The things people are saying, are they untrue? Silence. Then, we made a choice based on prior commitments. Marcus's engagement party was more important than my wedding. I know. You made that very clear. You're being vindictive. Did you plan this media circus? I laughed. Actually laughed. Plan it? Mom, I didn't even know about it until this morning. Daniel's colleague wrote an article because he was moved by our wedding, because 75 people showed up for us and none of them were my family. He told the truth. That's all. The truth? Elena, you're embarrassing the family. Your father's practice is getting calls. People are calling Marcus a sociopath on Twitter. Do you understand what this is doing to us? And there it was. Not, I'm sorry. Not, we made a terrible mistake. Just concern about their reputation. What it's doing to you? I kept my voice level. Mom, you missed my wedding. You chose a party over your daughter. That's not media spin. That's what happened. We had prior commitments. And I had a wedding, one day, and you couldn't be there. I heard her breathing on the other end. Then, in a different voice, smaller, more vulnerable than I'd ever heard from her. What do you want us to do? I want you to understand what you missed, not because of the media attention or the backlash or the embarrassment. I want you to understand that you had a choice between watching me marry the love of my life or attending a networking event, and you chose wrong. Not politically wrong, not socially wrong, morally wrong. Elena, I spent my whole childhood trying to be worthy of your attention. I became a doctor. I saved children's lives. I'm good at what I do. And none of it was ever enough because I wasn't Marcus. I wasn't the golden child with the right connections. But yesterday, surrounded by people who actually see me, I realized something. The problem was never that I wasn't enough. The problem was that you never looked. I could hear her crying now. Real tears, not performance. I'm sorry, she whispered. God, Elena, I'm so sorry. I know you are. But you're sorry because you got caught. Because it's public and embarrassing. Not because you hurt me. That's not fair. Isn't it? More silence. Then, what can we do to fix this? I don't know if you can fix this, Mom. But maybe start by asking yourself why 75 people loved us enough to show up, and you loved a networking opportunity more. I hung up. Daniel was watching me with something like awe. You okay? Yeah, I said, and I meant it. Yeah, I really am. The media attention lasted about a week. We turned down most interview requests. We released one statement through the hospital. We're grateful for the outpouring of support. Our wedding was everything we hoped for. Intimate, meaningful, and filled with love. We wish everyone involved peace and privacy. Dignified, brief, no drama. But the damage to my family was done. Not by me, by their own choices, now visible to everyone. Marcus called eventually, apologized, said he hadn't realized how much it would hurt me, that he'd been focused on his own event and hadn't considered my feelings. I believed he was sorry. I also knew it was too late for it to matter. My father sent a letter, actual handwritten letter, which was so unlike him it made me cry. He wrote about regrets, about realizing too late that he'd measured the wrong things, about being proud of me in ways he'd never expressed. It was beautiful and sad and insufficient. My mother tried hardest. She called weekly, asked about my life, tried to build something from the ruins of our relationship. I let her try, not because I forgave everything, but because I recognized that people can grow even after causing enormous damage. But things were different now. They would always be different. The luminarias became a thing. The hospital started a program, lighting lanterns for pediatric patients who completed treatment. Daniel and I funded it, turned it into something beautiful. Each lantern represented a child who'd fought and won. It became a symbol of hope. 6 months after our wedding, Marcus's engagement fell apart. Stephanie's father got caught in a financial scandal. Suddenly, the Hartley name wasn't so prestigious. Stephanie broke off the engagement 3 weeks later. Marcus called me, devastated, and said something I'll never forget. All those connections we cultivated, all those important people at the engagement party, none of them called when things fell apart. None of them cared. But the 75 people at your wedding? Those are the kind of people who show up. You knew that already. I'm just figuring it out now. Daniel and I built a life, a real one. We bought a small house near the hospital. We adopted a rescue dog who barks at everything. We have friends over for dinner parties where we use mismatched plates and nobody cares. We volunteer at children's camps for cancer survivors. We take photos together, not for social media, but for ourselves. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment when I woke up to 73 missed calls and discovered my wedding had become a headline. I think about how the thing my parents feared most, public judgment, was caused by the thing they valued most, status over substance. Poetic justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just truth, revealed at exactly the right moment. My mother asked me once, about a year after the wedding, if I'd ever truly forgive them. I thought about it carefully. I don't know, I told her honestly. But I've learned something important. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. I can forgive you for being human and flawed and making terrible choices. But I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't unsee what you showed me about your priorities. So maybe we build something new. Not what we had. That's gone. Something smaller and more honest. She nodded, cried a little, said she understood. Daniel's grandmother died last spring. At her funeral, I thought about what she told me before the wedding. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. She was right. The 75 people at our wedding proved it. The luminarias glowing in that dark field proved it. Family isn't who shares your DNA. Family is who shows up, who sees you, who chooses you over and over again, especially when it's inconvenient. I'm Dr. Elena Brooks Chen now. I hyphenated my name, Brooks to honor where I came from, Chen to celebrate where I belong. I save children's lives. I'm married to my best friend. I'm surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not who they want me to be. And my parents have to live with the fact that they missed one of the most important days of my life because they couldn't see past their own ambitions. That's not revenge. That's just consequences. Sometimes the best justice is simply living well, while others realize too late what they've lost. And sometimes the headline that changes everything isn't written by you. It's written by the people who loved you enough to see what you were worth all along. In the end, I won. Not because my wedding went viral, not because my family faced public judgment. I won because I built a life filled with real love instead of conditional approval. I won because 75 people lit lanterns in a field to tell the world I mattered. And that, it turns out, is worth more than any society page photograph or political connection could ever be. The morning after my wedding, my mother's face turned pale reading headlines that would haunt her forever. But that same morning, I woke up next to the man I love, knowing I was surrounded by people who chose me, knowing I had finally chosen myself. Some losses are clarifications. Some absences are revelations. Sometimes people choose wrong, and all you can do is live right. My name is Elena Brooks Chen, and I learned that the best revenge is a life so full of genuine love that those who rejected you finally understand exactly what they lost.